Questo è Oasis, un universo virtuale, un luogo in cui puoi essere tutto quello che desideri.
Dal regista Steven Spielberg.
Ma ora è in pericolo. Per salvarlo affronteremo 3 prove impossibili. Chi vincerà avrà il controllo completo di Oasis e la chiave del proprio futuro.
Ready Player One, dal 28 marzo al cinema.
Welcome, Mr. Spielberg.
Questo è Oasis.
It is an honor to host you at La Repubblica. Thank you for your time and thank you for finding the time to talk about your new movie and about your cinema. Yeah. Your new movie is fabulous. Really
Thank you very
fantastic.
much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we love you here in Italy. We think you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. You make it sound like I live here.
Well,
almost.
We wish.
Ready Player One is a movie for the general audience, but which is able to deal with the central issue of our times, the relationship between virtuality and reality. Why did you choose Ernest Cline's bestseller, and what persuaded you to make a movie out of it?
Well, I think when I first read Ernest Cline's book, Ready Player One, it was one of the most original stories, and I read a lot of stories, and it was one of the most original stories I had ever read in book form, because aside from the idea that there was this tremendous contest to acquire a talisman, or let's say an Easter egg that would lead to tremendous riches, aside from all the material gain about the story, it was about 5 friends. And the thing that really attracted me, these 5 friends had never met in the real world. Their avatars knew each other intimately, but they had never
seen each
other before.
Yeah.
And the idea that there are 2 worlds that are so close to one another is almost like a story about an alternate universe or a parallel universe. Yeah. And I've always loved string theory and stories about parallel universes, and this really appealed to that science fiction theme that I've always been interested in.
So since you have the possibility of doing all kinds of movies, how do you pick the right movie? Like, what's the feeling that makes you think, I want to do this?
It's a very good question, and I could just simply say that the movie picks me more than I pick it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And you always have good luck with that?
I always, no, not always good luck. Sometimes there's an orphan movie that picks me and it never gets adopted by the audience. Okay. Sometimes that happens. But I know the difference between wanting to devote a year or 2, in this case with Ready Player One, 3 years of my life to a project, and the difference between saying, I really like this story and I'd like to see this made into a film, but I think my company I will produce it and not direct it.
Oh, wow.
The difference between producing and directing is a vast difference.
Of course.
And I have to really, really be seduced by the story, the idea to get involved as a director.
So does that happen when you read a book? When you start reading chapter by chapter, do you imagine the shots, the different shots, and how can you, if that happens a lot, you think it's a good movie too?
But
it always happens?
It's not even thinking of shots. It has to do with, is this a story that is going to, does this story reach me in a way that I will be proud that this becomes part of my legacy? That this is a story that will be part of my life forever, because once you tell a story, you can't divest yourself.
Yeah.
I'm still the director of Hook in 1941, for whatever you may think of those 2 films, and I'm proud of them, but I'm still the director of those not very popular films, and yet I made the choice to do those movies because they hit a certain button.
That's great.
You know?
The book and the film tell us that the virtual world can be very beautiful, but also that the time has come to take a break from it.
Yes.
Yeah, is it really so?
Well, it's not really take a break from it. I think that our story is a cautionary tale about the relative, investment we make as people, as humans, to fellow humans. The amount of contact that we need that nourishes us, nourishes our souls, when we're actually making eye contact with each other, as opposed to our own kids who may have friends over to the house. I've seen this in my own living room, and my kids' friends come over and they talk like we talk, eye contact, and then they're right into their devices, and they're texting to each other, and they're only 3 feet away from each other, and they're sending Snapchats and Instagrams to each other.
But I found really interesting that your movies are like, do you know Black Mirror?
Yes.
it's like sort of a reverse Black Mirror. Black Mirror depresses you and gives you anxiety. And when you do movies about technology, especially this one, it has a positive spin on it. Like the progression of technology, it's inevitable.
Inevitable.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do you think we have to embrace that, or you think we have to make like sort of rules and how to socialize better?
I don't believe. I'm like James Halliday. I don't believe in rules. He doesn't believe in rules. I believe in the rule of law.
Okay.
But I don't believe that there are certain rules in terms of governing the freedom that all of us have to connect around the world, across the world through social media. I think we need to be governed by our own values, and based on hopefully how our parents have raised us, how our teachers have influenced us, and those values I think will make us ladies and gentlemen about it.
Yeah.
But I don't believe in rules in that sense. I just simply believe the way as a dad, I would say to my kids, you are limited to play video games. You can't watch television all day.
Okay.
You can't, be on your devices constantly. So those are the sort of rules that hopefully, are going to, create some law
Good
and
sense.
order.
Yeah, definitely. So are you addicted to smartphones?
Yes.
And how do you?
Yes, I am.
You too.
So you said all this stuff about not being on your phone.
Before I came on camera with both of you, I gave my assistant my smartphone to hold.
Yeah.
Because I was afraid that you would catch me feeling a vibration, and I would suddenly read and then realize I'm on TV. I can't go
you
to my
can't
phone.
get your phone. Yeah.
So I've got that kind of that kind of in Great American Westerns.
Yeah.
The gunslinger.
Yeah, the
you get on the
close-up.
street, and who's going to be the fastest?
To answer the phone.
And in my movie Hook, actually, before the cell phones became this big, in those days cell phones were this big, and they had a huge antenna. There's a scene at the beginning of Hook where Peter Banning, played by Robin Williams, has a fast draw phone contact.
Oh yeah, that's so great. Yeah.
From two holsters.
Yeah, that's so
And
great.
what's your relationship with social media?
My relationship to social media is I let in only what I need to know.
Yeah.
I like the kind of media I listen to. I listen to a lot of news social media. So I'm interested in Axios, which gives me my headlines and gives me and it tells me where to pay attention to what happened overnight. So every morning I wake up with Axios. But I don't have social media. I don't have a Twitter account. I'm not on Facebook. I don't Snapchat. All the things my kids do, my 7 kids and my 4 I don't do that at all.
Okay.
But I'm sure aware of it. And I made Ready Player One for all of you who are very, very involved in those worlds.
Of course.
And addicted.
Yeah, but I'm addicted to my smartphone, and only in the sense that I use it for news and I use it to text and email.
Are you excusing yourself for your addiction?
No, I can't excuse myself for my addiction. I can only say an addiction basically is something that will wake you up in the middle of the night if you feel it.
I know,
if
you're
you feel
right.
it vibrating,
You're right. Yeah.
I have to take the phone out of my bedroom.
Okay. Okay.
This is a movie for both teenagers and grown-up.
Yes.
But the strongest message to everybody is that reality is the only thing that matters. At a certain point you said,
yes,
because reality is real.
Yes.
And how relevant is the risk that we will forget it?
It really depends on how technology and how the popularity of a certain platform of new technology like virtual reality is going to, like all the characters in Ready Player One, be an all-consuming force of unnatural. It's something that
inputs.
If we can totally create
isolate
a system that stimulates us based on people that program the stimulation. But at the same time, we realized we could go to school, like in the Oasis. If you read the book, you can go to a school called Ludus, and you can get a primary, secondary education.
Oh, wow.
In cyberspace. You can get a job. You can get married. You can get divorced. You can do anything you want except eat and go to the bathroom. In the Oasis.
I love that, by the way.
In the Oasis, and it's just going to determine, and we'll only know when that era, seizes all of us, how much time we allow ourselves to spend making eye contact with other avatars, but not making eye contact with the humans. Pulling the strings of that avatar halfway across the world. So I'm always, when I made this movie, I said, there's got to be a message in this film that there is no substitute for personal, real contact.
Ready Player One is a movie set in a future which seems to be the degeneration of the present. Economic and energy crisis, poverty, overcrowding, and big technology multinational corporations which control everything.
Yes.
Do you think it will end up this way? The future?
Yes, it's happening this way right now.
Yeah.
I
and
mean,
what about the future?
Well, the future is going to even be more controlled by big corporations that are going to merge or bundle, right, and create these Goliath conglomerates that are going to, just like Nolan Sorrento controls, basically interactive online industries, IOI, and he's got an army of sixers fighting to get these keys and win this egg, and that is not that far away from what's happening right now.
Yeah, that's scary.
Because it's scary.
Yeah. So since Ready Player One is a movie about video games too, what were your favorite video games, and what video games do you remember gladly?
Well, I remember so many video games. I played the very first video game ever invented. I was making Jaws, and I was living on Martha's Vineyard and shooting the movie there. And Richard Dreyfuss and I found that there was a place on Martha's Vineyard that had a Pong game.
Oh, really?
It was a coin operated. You put a quarter in and you played table tennis or paddle tennis.
Yeah.
Boop, boop, boop. First time ever.
And you liked it?
I got addicted to it. And every chance we got, when we came back from shooting, we would race out to, I think it was Vineyard Haven, and play this one Pong game.
Wow.
And when I got back to Hollywood after I finished Jaws, the first thing I did was I bought a Pong game. And I had it in my office for like 5 years. But I played all the coin-op games.
Okay.
I played all the Namco games and the Atari
Pac-Man,
games, and Pac-Man, and Ms. Pac-Man, Missile Command, and all of that, Centipede.
So,
but that was the original. But then I got very much into the 2600, the Atari, 2600 platform.
Yeah, Atari,
Played all those games, and now I just do. I'm a PC player. I don't have an Xbox. Really? I don't have a PlayStation. I play all my games on PC.
Oh wow! What kind of games do you play with your children and your grandchildren?
I used to, and my son Max is a game designer at Electronic Arts in Los Angeles.
Wow, that's great.
He designs games.
Really good, Max.
Good for him. I love that. I'm proud of him. But yeah, I play a lot of the games today, and I shouldn't say this, but I play a lot of the games like,
Call of Duty?
Call of Duty,
yeah, I knew that.
But I don't play Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, you don't?
Too violent.
Are you sure?
I stopped myself. I play Assassin's Creed.
Oh, that's a great game.
Yeah.
It's based in Italy too, Assassin's Creed.
It is.
That's great.
Yeah.
About a movie, today in the world there are less wars, violence, and diseases than in the past. Why, on the contrary, do movies from Blade Runner to Mad Max describe the future like the Middle Ages?
It's interesting. The future, there's a dystopian. I think the word in French is noir. There's a. I know in America we have a genre called film noir, and a lot of filmmakers, including myself, when I made Minority Report, that was a pure film noir picture. About a very dangerous future where murders can be predicted, but people who haven't yet committed the crime are arrested and neutralized. And it was a Philip K. Dick short story, which I always loved. And so I think we're all attracted to the darkness, as long as there's a morality lesson at the end of the story. There has to be some light at the end of that very dark tunnel. And so films like Blade Runner, and it doesn't have a lot of redemption, Blade Runner. It doesn't give you a lot of light at the end of the tunnel there.
That's true. That's true.
I would like to talk about privacy. It's a pivotal issue in this period, in this day. In the story, a group of players fight against a multinational corporation over the control of a video game.
Yes.
And which represents a collective imagination. The issue of individual rights and of democracy is one of the central issues of your movies, in your fantasy, and also in your historical movies. I think Minority Report, Amistad, Lincoln.
Yes.
Are you worried by the increasingly recurring invasion in our privacy?
Of course I am. I'm worried about that. I'm worried about the fact that it's quite possible that all of our devices have cameras on them.
Yeah, I believe that.
And
I take my shower with my clothes on.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. That's the best way to do it. Or at least put a piece of tape over the lens of your camera. But it's kind of the George Orwell fear that Big Brother is watching. And now it's not really Big Brother, it's Little Brother or Little Sister. And and you could be observed from a laptop or even from a small smartphone. And I'm concerned also about advertisers learning all about us so they can direct their product directly to us.
That happens already.
But that's a big invasion of privacy as well, because you start getting all the spam and it all starts flooding in, and that's because the information highway, or basically I guess you call it the social networking, is like Tombstone, Arizona in 1880. It's a lawless, part of the Old West. I'm making another Western analogy, but it is still lawless. But at the same time, I'm not the first person that's going to say I think there needs to be regulation. I worry about it being regulated as well.
Of course, because it can fight with our privacy if they regulate it. It's really difficult.
If they regulate it, they can take away the freedom of our expression. They can take away our voices.
It's really difficult.
And what's happening today more than ever, this is a watershed year, where women and minorities are finding their voices.
On the internet,
and
that's
on the internet.
right.
And it's very important what's happening right now.
Yeah. So, talking about movies, how do you feel before the premiere of a movie, or when the movie has to come out? What do you feel? Did it change in time? It's always the same feeling? Are you...
They have to wrest the film away from my fingers. They have
you want to edit it?
No, I don't want to let the movie go.
Oh, wow.
Because I have lived with this movie, or all my movies, for so many years and so many months.
You don't want people to see it?
Not for a long time. I just want to work on it and change it and look at it and take a week away from it and come back and see it with fresh eyes. And I keep sort of molding it until the studio says, hey, we've got to release this picture in 6 weeks. You've got to show it to us. So I kind of like fight I don't want to give my movies up. So the hardest thing to do is to give it up, which we all have to do.
And leave it alone.
And leave it alone and walk away. That's the hardest thing to do. Because the thing of it is, when I make a movie, it's like having a child. That's why it's hard for me when I'm asked the question, which is my favorite movie of mine? I can't answer that question.
Yeah, because they're
It's like raising a kid. And you get to a point then where the kid is adopted by all of you, and then you suddenly are the parents of my child. That I had raised for a long time, but now it's your responsibility, and I'm out of the picture. And that's difficult.
And after your movie comes out, let's say Ready Player One comes out, and in a week from now, will you be on Google reading comments about the movie?
I don't usually do it that way. I hear what people are saying and thinking. It all osmosis to me, but I don't sit in front of a screen.
Oh, okay. You don't Google
scroll.
yourself.
I don't Google myself. I don't scroll through all the comments.
Okay.
It's insane.
But it'd be crazy. But you think that I will, the toughest thing for me after every movie that I really love making, I love making Ready Player One, even though it was a hard film to make. It's after it's all over, there's an emptiness, and the emptiness can only be filled if I find another story.
Oh, okay.
And if I don't have immediately another story to tell, and I have to search for it, and that takes a long time,
you get depressed.
I don't get depressed because but I get blue. Let's put it that way.
Of course.
Yeah.
But you shot the post while you were preparing this new movie.
I did.
Yeah. How can one work on such different projects at the same time?
Well, I think I'm not, but I think my career is bipolar.
Also, in 1993, you already had to move back and forth between Schindler's List and Jurassic Park.
Yes, yeah. Well, this is all about timing. I don't do that because I'm trying to torture myself or overburden myself with too much work. Sometimes films time out, that they just overlap. The production of one overlaps with the startup of another. And where it was not fun was Jurassic Park, because I was so involved in shooting a story about the Shoah, the Holocaust in Krakow, Poland.
Yeah.
That every time I had to go home to the house I was renting in Krakow and work with ILM on the digital dinosaur shots, it was not fun for me. That was not fun.
So that's incredible. That's the incredible thing about it, though, that you did the work anyway, and you did one of the greatest movies of all time. That for us, it's incredible that you can do two different movies so quickly and at the same time. You're kind of like a tennis player that plays with 2 rackets.
Oh my God! Oh my God! You're kind of like Venus and Vanessa Williams.
Yeah. The both Siamese twins.
I think that part of it is not a skill set.
Okay.
And it's not something that I can do naturally. It's a very unnatural thing to make 2 movies at the same time. The Post was a different experience. Let me explain that. I had already finished shooting Ready Player One, and I had finished cutting it together. Then I had an entire year, a year and 4 months of digital effects work with ILM and with Digital Domain. During the first few months of that, I was only required to show up for 3 hours once a week. And a month later, it was 2 days a week for 3 hours a day.
Okay.
And a month after that, it was 3 days a week for 3 hours a day. Then after that, it was every day. But in that little pause, by some miracle, I got the script by Liz Hanna called The Post.
Yeah.
And it was a story that spoke to what's happening today with our administration today suppressing or trying to suppress our First Amendment rights and certainly the rights of a free press to print the truth when the truth is being labeled fake news.
Of course.
And because Richard Nixon did that to the Washington Post or the New York Times in 1971, when the Pentagon Papers were leaked, Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks and I thought, this is a public service to tell the story now. We're not going to make any money. We're just going to do a public service. That's why I felt it was urgent to make that movie last year.
It's fantastic. As a journalist, I love that.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you.
But do you still read newspaper news on paper?
On paper.
Yeah? Every morning?
I look at Axios online every morning.
Yeah.
And I look at, sometimes I'll look at CNN online, but I read the New York Times, I read the Washington Post, I read the Wall Street Journal almost every day.
Wow, you read a lot of
Thank
newspapers. That's really good. So in the movie, there's a lot of cultural references from the 80s. What are your favorite things about the 80s? What are your favorite pop culture stuff from the 80s? Except your movies.
Except my movies. Okay, so I could leave those out for now, right? The 80s was an amazing place. It was almost a decade of grace.
Yeah.
In the sense that there weren't really any national crises. There were always global crises going on, but America was relatively calm. It was one of the few nostalgically calm decades where Reagan was the president, the economy was good, and a lot of filmmakers were telling stories to big audiences. We wanted to entertain, not just to inform. And the music was kind of light and airy, and we had Duran Duran, we had Van Halen, we had the spillover from the Bee Gees coming out of Saturday Night Fever in 1977, spilling over into the 80s. And styles were different, and Buckaroo Banzai came out.
Yeah, Buckaroo Banzai.
There were a lot of things so Ernest Cline, when he wrote Ready Player One, loves the 80s, and he was the one that introduced the fact that in 2045, the world is so dystopian. And we have no middle class anymore. It's like it's a privileged class and a poverty class.
Yeah, the 1%, let's say.
Exactly. And so Ernest Cline proposed that everybody return to the 80s because it was a great escape into the past.
Yeah. That's great.
And what about the 70s? Do you like the 70s?
Yeah, well, the 70s was, for me, it was a good time for me in my career because I got to make a lot of movies in the 70s. And the 70s was a good time. But I had more fun in the 80s than the 70s. And the important thing about the 80s is this. I met the woman of my dreams, and I fell in love and got married. We're still married to this day, 27 years later. My first child was born in the 1980s, and I formed my company, Amblin Entertainment, in the 1980s. So personally,
it was great.
It was a good decade.
Yeah,
it was a good decade.
Is it true, as your friend Brian De Palma says, that you did not like rock and roll?
I like jazz.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah, I like jazz. I was always an aficionado of jazz. I used to go to jazz clubs. I haven't done that in a while, but I used to do it all the time, all through college. I just went to jazz clubs.
Oh, wow.
And heard live some of the great, jazz performers.
Yeah.
And I liked classical music because my mom played classical piano. Okay. And she had a lot of musicians come to the house to perform. That's
cool.
So I was raised on, jazz and classical
Do you play?
music. No, I don't play. I play clarinet a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Badly.
If the movie goes good, you play the clarinet.
If the movie goes good, I could actually go to a jazz club and duet with Woody Allen, who also plays clarinet.
And we wanted to know something about your colleagues, like.
Yeah, because the protagonists in the movie, you told about the I-5. The protagonist joined a group of rebel hunters, the I-5, to win the venture. Your high-five in life are the movie brats. Is it correct? I have a picture
That's what they
here.
call us. They call us
I
that.
have the picture.
Oh yeah, that's it. That's it. The movie brats.
Oh, look at you.
Spielberg, Coppola, Scorsese, Lucas, and De Palma.
That's right.
Could you tell us something about
who was drunk here?
Nobody. Oh my God! I'll tell you one thing. We were all teetotalers. I mean, I don't know if Francis drinks wine because he makes a fortune from the wine business.
That's the only reason why he drinks wine.
But I don't know.
Well, there's wine
these
here.
are not drunks in this picture, I promise you.
Oh, I know.
There may be wine there, but I think we're drinking water in that picture.
Okay.
Tell us something about your friendship with them.
Well, my friendship started with Francis Coppola. I met him first. Francis introduced me to George Lucas at a film festival in the 60s for student films. It was at UCLA Royce Hall, and they were showing, it was a big competition between two great universities with film departments, UCLA and USC.
Yeah.
And so USC and UCLA had a sort of a bake-off. And I happened to come, I was in Long Beach State at the time, and I happened to come and watch. And backstage, George Lucas won first prize for THX 1138, the short film.
Oh, wow.
If any of you have seen that or seen it online.
I heard.
The short's fantastic.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that a student made a film like that. It was exceptional. So I was introduced to George backstage at that event. We became best friends, and we have been ever since. And Brian, I met him in New York in 1971. And Marty, I've known even longer.
Scorsese?
I knew Marty Scorsese.
He's so great.
When he was teaching at NYU, before he made films, he was the youngest teacher there in the film department, and I met him, I think, in probably 1967.
That's great.
When I was a student at Long Beach State.
See. What about, you did Jurassic Park, and some of those older movies have, they don't have CGI, they have mechanical.
Which is great.
It is great. Jurassic Park.
I would rather have mechanical.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So in Ready Player One, there's all this great, amazing CGI. How do you think is there a different way to give emotions to these monsters or characters, and it's a different process between CGI and mechanical?
Well, the great thing about mechanical is Stan Winston developed these full-size dinosaurs, full-size T-Rex, full-size brachiosaur head and neck, a full-size sick triceratops, a full-size Dilophosaurus, the one that spits in the Nedry's face.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was amazing because these are all operated the way I made E.T. was a full-size alien, and it's all operated by puppeteers backstage. They pull these levers and create the different facial expressions by pulling wires that stretch the polyethylene in the skin and gives the real feeling of emotion. When that's in the real world, here's the good news about that. The actors get to react directly to the scale and size of the T-Rex, or the two kids in the car, played by Lecton.
So you say it helps the acting,
It helps the acting because it's all happening in real time.
Yeah, I agree.
But in Ready Player One, the idea was everything's an avatar. So that's why we couldn't have anything in full-size reality.
Wow. What about your friend, the I-5? We would like. Could you describe each of them through an adjective? Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah. Oh, one word?
Yeah.
Yeah, one word for.
Francis Ford Godfather. Francis Ford Coppola, Godfather.
Martin Scorsese.
Casino.
No, not with the movie. Marty Scorsese is. I call him a speed demon.
Speed demon?
Speed demon. Because he's fast. He talks fast. He moves fast. He thinks fast. He gets fast ideas. He interacts with his actors quickly. So he's a speedster.
Wow. What about George Lucas?
George Lucas is only I can say this because I know him so well. George Lucas is a comedian.
Really?
Yes. You can't tell, but he's a very funny guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. With no wine, without drinking.
No wine. He's naturally, he's very dry, but he's very funny.
Okay.
And Brian De Palma?
Split screen.
Split screen.
Split screen.
That's such a...
If you ever seen any of Brian's films,
They're all split screen?
they're all split screen, but his movies are kind of like split screen
Are you
as
making
well.
fun of him?
No, he would like that. He would say, yeah, Steve got me. He got me.
And we know also that you like and you love Stanley Kubrick.
Yes.
Yeah. Next week in Italy there will be an auction of memorabilia about Kubrick. I have the catalog for you because
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
you
this
can
is-
find very strange memorabilia from him.
Stanley, I'm not going to say he was a hoarder, but Stanley certainly kept most everything. So I'm very curious to know how all of this got into the world of commerce. But oh my goodness, there's some stuff in here I would like to get. Oh my good, thank you very much. Wow.
So
But we were friends for 19 years.
19
years.
Wow.
I knew Stanley until he died.
Yeah.
I met him on the set of The Shining in 1980.
Oh, that's so cool.
And we became friends mostly on the telephone.
Okay.
But
so
we
you called each other.
we'd have long conversations. We had
About
an 8-hour marathon telephone conversation one time.
Wow.
Yeah.
About what?
Hour.
About movies?
About AI.
Oh, wow.
When he
Artificial...
artificial intelligence, the film that Stanley was supposed to make, and after his death, the family, Christian and Jan Harlan, his brother-in-law, asked me to take it over.
That's great.
But when he had developed this amazing story, no script yet, he asked me if I would produce it, and then later he asked me if I would direct it, and he would produce it. So that was, we went back and forth on that for a while.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So who do you think is your greatest inspiration in your life? A person, or who inspires you, and who gives you the strength to be in the moment and to keep on doing this thing?
That's easy. My mom.
Your mom?
My dad.
That's...
My dad's 101.
Oh, wow.
I lost my mom last year at 97, but my dad's 101.
Wow.
And my dad was my first producer. When I was 16 years old, I made a feature film called Firelight on 8mm film.
Yeah.
And my dad actually financed it. It cost $500. We had a screening, only one screening. We charged $1 a ticket. 501 people showed up, and we made $1 a profit.
Yeah, that's a positive.
So I would say my mom and my dad for sure. And then the other person that got my career jump-started is a man named Sidney Sheinberg, who was the head of Universal Television, then became head of Universal Studios, along with Lou Wasserman. And he's the guy that found me in college when I was like 21 years old and offered me a contract to direct television.
Wow. Wow. Great.
While watching a documentary about you, my daughter asked me, did he make all the movies? Did he leave nothing to the others? And I would like to understand, is there a movie made by another filmmaker you would have liked to shot?
Oh, so many. Oh my goodness, where do I start?
Let's just say
But,
one.
well, there's so many movies that I would have loved to have had the chance to make. One of them is The Deer Hunter by Michael Cimino, which is one of my favorite films.
Great.
But it wouldn't have been the success if I had made it that Michael made, because I really believe that all filmmakers have an ability to do their own kinds of films. And when we, so that film, Michael Cimino was born to tell that story, to make that movie
Is there truth
about
that,
Vietnam. It's the first film ever made about PTSD. Post-traumatic stress syndrome. And that was his destiny, not mine. But I really love that picture so much.
That's great. So I suggest people at home to watch one of the greatest, I think, auditions I ever saw. It's the kid that made Elliot in E.T.
Henry Thomas.
Henry Thomas, and it's such an amazing audition. How do you get a kid that young to act so well? Do you say a few words? Do you say a lot of things to them? What's the problem?
It's not really. Every kid is different. There's not a rule book called How to Direct Children.
Of course,
because I have to adapt to them. I have to actually figure out who they are first, and I adapt myself to them. I don't ask them to learn from me. I actually learn more from them by getting to know them. But with Henry Thomas, I had already seen something like 150 kids, and none of them were right.
Yeah.
And when Henry came in, I knew that he looked the part. He looked great. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know if he could act, but I wanted to see how he would behave in a imagined situation.
Yeah.
So I set up a scenario, and he did an improvisation.
Yeah.
And the casting director, Mike Fenton, was the voice you hear off camera.
Yeah, that's so great.
And Henry reacted with a camera rolling completely naturally. He burst into tears when Mike Fenton threatened to take his special friend away.
No, yeah.
He said, "No, you can't have him. He's mine."
Yeah.
And that was authentic. And I said, my God, if I can get that truth from him in the dialogue that Melissa Matheson wrote in the E.T. script, nobody else can play Elliot as well as Henry. Yeah.
In the past, you used to say, I'm happy when I make a movie. I'm unhappy in the breaks between one movie and the other.
Right.
Do you still think so?
I do. I mean, look, I have a lot of friends and I have a lot of family, and we have a very, very close family. So yeah, when I'm not working, my wife keeps me very busy. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't do while I was working that I need to catch up and do, that I had put off. So there's a lot of stuff I still have to catch up on. But there comes that moment between films where I'm just not figuring out what I want to direct next, where I feel kind of like an island. I just, I don't really, it's not the happiest time in my life when I don't quite know what story to tell next.
Yeah.
And that's happened a number of times to me.
So you did a movie that's called Jaws in English.
Yeah.
It's called Lo Squalo. It's a movie about a shark. I wrote a movie. It's called Beach Tuna, Tonno Spiaggiato. And would you say that movies about fish do better at the box office? Because my movie didn't come out yet, and
Well, it didn't come out yet.
Yeah.
What's your fish? Is it a sea bass or what kind of fish is it?
It's a tuna.
A tuna.
Yeah.
Tuna doesn't have teeth. Teeth is more commercial. You need to put teeth in
to the tuna?
You should do a genetic hybrid thing.
Oh, yeah.
And you breed the tuna with a barracuda.
Okay.
At least your tuna has teeth now.
That's a good idea. Thank you. I'll do that.
I'm curious about one thing. The protagonists of your movies are always been lonely and clumsy young people escaping from a difficult reality thanks to imagination. Why?
Because that's me. Because that's me. I'm clumsy. I grew up kind of geeky, and still am, actually. Except the great news is the world of geekiness is caught up, and now geeks is popular. It wasn't when I was alone in high school.
Yes.
When I was all your ages, I was not a popular kid in school at all. I mean, I was like the least popular kid in school. Because I was weird because I had a camera and I was making little 8mm movies. Yeah. And a lot of people,
They made fun of you?
Yeah, especially if they were in sports and they said, who's this, geeky kid making movies?
Well, they should see you now.
But today, they probably pay a lot of money to see my movies now.
Yeah.
But I just find that that all goes that goes into my characters. That winds up into a lot of the characters I tell stories about. Because I think it's really great to root for the underdog, to tell stories about forces or behemoths or ideologies sort of coming after you, and you have to suddenly find the courage and find the resolve and the spirit to achieve, and not only save yourself but save your friends. And that kind of basic dimensionality between the pursuer and the pursued is alive in a lot of my movies.
I agree.
You are in Rome, and tonight you will be awarded the David Prize for Lifetime Achievement.
Yes.
How is your relationship with Italy?
It's been a robust and healthy and loving relationship with Italy ever since I started watching Italian films when I went to all the cinemas in America when I was a student in college, and I saw all my Rossellini films. I saw Fellini and Antonioni, and I even got a chance to watch Antonioni direct Zabriskie Point. Oh. I went out to the California desert where we were shooting, and a friend of mine knew an assistant director, so I was able to get onto the set and watch Antonioni. Wow. And so I think Italian cinema has done wonders for the world, because the other thing that Italian cinema has done is through the fact that we have open borders, or we had open borders in the United States, through immigration and through generosity of open borders, we got Vincent Minnelli, we got his parents who came here, he was born here, we got Frank Capra, we got Francis Coppola, we got Tarantino, we got Scorsese, so the Italian cinema has reached into American cinema and given us tremendous gifts.
That's great.
De Niro.
Robert De Niro.
Well, De Niro and Pacino and so many. I'm just mentioning directors, but of course all the actors and writers and producers. Sure.
So Daniel Day-Lewis said in his documentary that artist only, he wants to retire, he said, and he doesn't want to make movies anymore, because he said that artists only last a certain period of time.
Right.
Do you think that's true? Do you think it's just maybe you get sick of it, or if you have a strong passion, can that passion not, you can end doing movies like that?
I'll tell you quickly a sad story.
Okay.
Because when I was younger and becoming well known as a filmmaker, I had an opportunity to meet a lot of directors.
Okay.
Like Billy Wilder. We used to have lunch once every couple of weeks.
Okay.
And Frank Capra I met. When E.T. came out, he wrote me a fan letter, and we had lunch the next day after I received the letter.
Wow.
So I got to meet King Vidor, and I got to meet William Wellman, the director of the first movie that won the Oscar for Best Picture. The first Oscar ever was on a movie called Wings, directed by William Wellman. And I got to know Michael Powell. I got to know a lot of the great filmmakers. And they all had one thing in common. Nobody would hire them.
Okay.
Nobody would give them a chance to continue making movies by telling their stories. And that was, so they hadn't lost their passion. Okay. They hadn't gotten tired of directing. They hadn't gotten too old to direct. They fell out of the popular culture and were pushed to the side by a whole new generation of filmmakers.
Last question. Thank you so much for your time, first of all.
I love being here, by the way.
Oh, thank you. We're very happy too.
Thank you.
It's a stupid question. What's your favorite place in Italy?
Florence.
Florence.
I've spent a lot of time in Florence. My daughter went to school there at the university. She was at Brown University.
Yeah.
And she did her junior year, gap year, not gap year. But
Does she like it here?
She loved it here.
Oh,
And
okay.
we discovered Florence through our daughter. And then so many of my friends since then have gotten married in Florence. We keep going back for weddings all the time.
And what about Rome?
Oh, yeah.
I love Rome because Rome is the city of our film Gladiator.
Yeah.
Rome is also, the city that's probably been most rebuilt by Hollywood dream makers. There's so many stories that have taken place about Rome, about the Roman Empire. Mm-hmm. It's so popular. But Rome itself is a city that respects its past, loves its history, and enjoys sharing its history with everybody, which means it preserves it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen in my country.
Yeah.
We take a bulldozer and we bulldoze history.
Yeah, that's right.
And we put up a big glass building.
Yeah.
Whereas here in Italy, history is revered, and I really respect that.
Thank you. Grazie, Frank.
Can I ask
Thank
you
you
one
so
last
much.
question?
Sure.
Could I make a video of you telling people to watch my movie, please?
Yes.
It's called Tonno Spiaggiato. It comes out the 10th of May.
Okay, what's it called?
Tonno Spiaggiato.
Okay. When you see Tonno Spiaggiato, come to theaters. And if the poster makes you feel that is one heck of a scary trout or one heck of a scary bass, or whatever the fish is, then I'm sure it's worth your time.
Thank you, Steven. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you. Thank all of you very much. Thank you. It's so pleasure to sit here.